Oh, hey, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Teal Tinted Glasses. With me tonight is the full crew. We have the Hockey Jerk.
I was accidentally muted, but hello, everybody. How are you?
And Kevin Lacey also joining us tonight, which is awesome because we miss Kevin a lot.
Oh, thanks. Well, we are all Kevin. Today is August 9th, 2017, and TSN, NHL Network, and the NHL will jam it down your throats that Wayne Gretzky was traded 29 years ago today. We deal with this every year. So my question to you guys is, next year is the dirty 30th anniversary of it, but will you care? Because we do this every summer.
That is such a great point to start off with, and I'm glad you brought it up because today I was actually asked, well, I wasn't asked personally, but in the crew of over at Puck Pros, we were asked if anyone wanted to take it, and I was just like, to me, I'm like, I just can't be bothered to try and come up with 300 words on why I care about this 29 years later. Like, I don't understand why it's such. I mean, I understand it's August 9th, news is slow, I get it, but I just like at least 30 years. Yeah, like every year. Come on. It's the same crap every year. It's like, Gretzky got traded to the Kings, and then, that made it possible for West Coast and Sunbelt expansion and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's the same article every year. I think they just honestly have it in they have it saved and they just repost it every year because it doesn't change, and it drives me absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Well, what pisses me off is that when February comes around, nobody talks about when Wayne Gretzky joined clearly the best team he played for, the St. Louis Blues.
That's true. Like, I get Gretzky, I get the importance of Gretzky, but
Gretzky wore a turtleneck on the Blues. Shut up.
That's true. The thing with Gretzky though is, like, when that trade went down, I was 8. Like, so so I feel like for like a lot of the people that are consuming these articles and stuff, I'm not saying, it's just, that old fogies like me are in the minority. I just feel like for a lot of people though, like, it's not even relevant to them because they weren't even alive for it.
Yeah. For me, I was a baseball fan.
So. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sad.
Where are you at this on, Jerk? Because actually, it's funny. I'm glad Kevin brought this up because I saw you tweeted out some stuff earlier, and I can't say it verbatim on the show because we do try to keep it family friendly here on Teal Tinted Glasses. But in a family friendly way, tell us how you feel about this, Mr. Jerk.
Okay, so I'm going to preface all of this by saying that in 1989 or 88 or whenever he was traded, I was not alive. Okay, so right then, I don't care because it didn't happen in my lifetime. Now, I myself, and if I'm in the minority, then that's fine. But I believe that yes, Wayne Gretzky is a good player, but he played in an era where it was incredibly easy to score, and he has been retired long enough to have played another full career. So I think he needs to... honestly, I think he's, I don't want to say he's overrated, but I think the topic of Wayne Gretzky has been bled absolutely dry. I think he shouldn't be the benchmark for things anymore. I think we're now in a time where, Sidney Crosby is the benchmark, whether people
lost all our listeners. Thanks.
I was going to say whether
Sidney
people
Crosby was so 2 days ago, guys, because it was 8-7. Happy birthday, man! I'm over it.
Oh man!
But here's it's, I think in this time, Sidney Crosby is the benchmark again, whether people want to admit it or accept it or not, and that's the other thing is like you alluded to, Gretzky coming to Los Angeles, paved the way for the Sharks. No, it did not, because little known fact, Randy Hahn actually started a company the same year that Gretzky was traded called Pro Hockey San Jose with the intention of bringing a hockey team to San Jose. And I don't think he got his inspiration from Wayne Gretzky coming to the Los Angeles Kings, because generally when you're starting a company with the intention of bringing a sports team to a city, you don't just, one idea doesn't make you think of that. You usually have to put some planning into that and, you know, allocate some funds. So the family-friendly short version is that I think he's over talked about, and we should all just pretend like he isn't relevant.
That's a great point about Randy. Kudos to you, Hockey Jerk.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's almost like I know a couple things.
It's almost like, you know, it's true. It's almost like you do know a couple things. All right, so I feel like, yeah, you know what, I kind of echo some of the things. Now, I was fortunate enough to watch Gretzky play. You know, so I definitely, I feel like, you know, would I go as far as to say overrated? No, but I agree about, you know, this is one of the things that hockey in general has a problem with, is a lot of navel gazing, where, you know, instead of, you know, and this is something that we do a lot, you know, we do it with the 72 Summit Series. I think that the 72 Summit Series gets talked about still way too much. I feel like the Miracle on Ice gets talked about way too much. Like, you know, it seems like every time there's especially like an international tournament, you know, everything goes back. It's like, it's all about the Miracle on Ice team. And it bothers me because I think by, you know, and the Miracle on Ice is a huge thing. Okay. And I agree, like, I understand the significance of that victory for USA Hockey as a program, but there's so many great players. Like, if the Americans, when the NHLers could play in the Olympics, if they won, it wouldn't be a miracle at this point, because that's how far USA Hockey has come. But it's always like made out to be like this would be this, you know, oh, can they repeat the miracle? Like, yes, I understand that they're not, you know, they're not a hockey superpower, but they certainly aren't a hockey weakness either. They're not Germany, they're not Switzerland. Like, they're a legit power in the hockey world at this point. And I think that the constant trying to be family friendly, the constant going on about the Miracle on Ice really diminishes how far the program's come, in my opinion, as an outsider.
But I will say, though, that it would be a miracle if USA was to win the Olympics here next year with no NHL or AHL players, for that matter.
Which is an excellent segue.
I was just gonna say, if USA would have beat Canada at the World Cup, it would have been a Miracle on Ice.
Yes, because the US,
if they'd beaten anybody, it would have been a Miracle on Ice.
Okay, but that team was built to fail.
Yes, this is true.
I mean, that team wasn't the best that USA had to offer, in my opinion, anyway. And I think I'm not alone in that opinion. Like, USA could have iced a much better team in the World Cup. But that does bring up that brings up a great point, as Kevin tried to segue us there. And it was announced that not only are the NHLers not allowed to go to the Olympics in South Korea, it is now also anyone under an NHL contract in the AHL also will not be able to go. So what do you guys think about that? Yeah, what do you think? Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm not shocked by this, actually, because of the fact that they're all 60% of the players in the AHL are contracted to the NHL one way or what unintended pun one way or another way. Two ways. Wow. Totally did not mean to go there.
This is what we've missed with you being gone.
I know.
Oh dear. I just come up with them on the spot, folks. But it is going to be interesting, because that doesn't mean that all AHL players are exempt. That means that the guys who are contracted only to AHL deals can play. But that makes me think, like, there were a few AHL contracts last year who the name that comes to my mind is Kyle Criscuolo of the AHL champion Grand Rapids Griffins, who got himself a 2-year, two-way deal with the Sabres, effectively taking himself out of consideration for the Olympics. Like, I do think that kind of sucks for guys like that earn their way up, but you earn your way right out of the Olympics.
Yeah, Dirk, what's your kind of initial thoughts here?
Well, it makes sense because like Kevin alluded to, if you're just because you're in the AHL doesn't mean you're all of a sudden not the property of an NHL team. It makes sense. I mean, it doesn't really come as a surprise either, though. I mean, it's been well documented for the last, year and a half, 2 years that, while the NHL does want to grow the game, asterisk, that asterisk indicates that South Korea clearly isn't part of that whole scope of wanting to grow the game, because I believe I've already heard that they're planning on sending NHL players, at least want to China in 2022.
Yes. Yeah, that's my understanding.
I just, the reasoning behind it, I mean, I understand it, with what goes on out in the world outside of hockey, politics and all that nonsense. But I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the NHL would be, doing themselves a favor if they just came out and said why they didn't want their players there. I mean, for me, the type of person I am, I would rather be given the truth, no matter how harsh or, intense it might be, as opposed to trying to fabricate some kind of ridiculous reason as to why you don't want your players there. I mean, let's face it, at times South Korea is a dangerous area.
Sure.
I
think what it boils down to is that the NHL case, this is my understanding from what I've read, from what I've heard, and it's that the NHL is tired of taking all the risk and not reaping any of the financial rewards, which is typical for pretty much every, sport that lends their players to the Olympics, right? Like, they don't get any cut of that money. They have to take all the risk. They're the ones, they're the ones that have to pay for the insurance and the accommodations and whatnot. And so I think that's a big sticking point. And I think they just, honestly, they want to get paid from it. Pretty much. If they're going to put their players out at risk, where you have a guy like John Tavares gets injured and hanks, an entire basically team season,
right?
Obviously it's really, that's a hard pill to swallow when financially you don't benefit anything from stopping the season for 2 weeks and allowing your top players to go to these tournaments. On the point though, I think for me, this is, I think, also a missed opportunity, I think, for the NHL teams as well, though. I understand that, the AHL players, and it would suck to like have an injury in the middle of the Olympics and, your top prospects playing over for, their Olympic team. But at the same time, like, I feel like it's kind of a missed opportunity from a development standpoint, because what is a better development opportunity than, the Olympic Games, where you can send, okay, so you can't send your NHL players, but, your guys that are right below, your Danny O'Regans per se, or, a couple of years ago, like Mikko Rantanen was just tearing it up in the AHL. To not give them that development opportunity, I think that's a significantly that's significantly problematic for development. I think it's unfortunate. I guess that leads me to my question is, like, do you think that the NHL is by doing this from like maybe like an overall PR perspective, do you feel that this is kind of biting off your nose in spite of your face? Are they hurting themselves at this point just to stick it to the IOC and the IIHF by extension?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, and it's like I said earlier, they talk about wanting to grow the game globally. Well, except for this one part of the world, we don't care about that part of the world. But, and you bring up a really good point about allowing players to kind of, who've paved their way to kind of show what they have on an international stage. And even, going back to the previous Olympics in Sochi, the Sochi Olympics in 2014 directly led to the KHL getting a team in Sochi.
Yep.
And I mean, they had their troubles in their first season, but it's to my understanding that they've actually turned it around the last couple of years. And that right there is a product of trying to spread the game globally. And even this past year, the KHL added a team in China.
Yep.
And I mean, I know, like, I think there's a lot that goes into it. Like, obviously you want to grow the game. You want to grow the game, but I think I think it's a little shady to kind of pick where you want to grow the game. Like, ultimately, it's going to spread there eventually. You should just embrace it. And you never know. Let's say you have the Olympics on, NBC in the United States, and a team like whoever it was in 2014, I think it was Latvia who made it, and
Yep.
Cinderella. Yeah. Let's say they have a bona fide superstar, and everybody in North America is like, oh crap, this guy is pretty good. We should bring him to North America. Like you kill yourself in finding, international stars as well. And I think Kevin had a question, so I'll stop talking.
That's all right. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'll need to now remember what that question was. But I've argued ad nauseum about how this does not help the game grow. Who's texting me? All right, phone off. You should have made me remember my question. Anyway, I've argued ad nauseum about how this doesn't grow the game at all. I mean, you're looking at NHL revenue from a profit standpoint, and they're not doing themselves any favors by not exposing their best players on the biggest stage they possibly can from a media standpoint. And things have kind of, I don't know if they've peaked. I can say they've peaked at least locally here in San Jose, because the Sharks went to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 seasons ago, and people still backlashed against ownership for raising costs. And it's to the point where they're now losing revenues because they raised costs too high. The only way you can continue to raise your revenues is by growing your fan base. And they are shooting themselves in the foot by this. I don't know. My question is, the IIHF has threatened that the NHL cannot participate in 2022 if they don't participate in 2018. Do you think they're going to decide, nah, all right, we need your
I think that's an empty threat. You look at everyone right now wants to be in China. China's an economic giant right now. It's no coincidence the NHL has, I think, 2 preseason games in China this year. I think the Golden Knights and the Canucks, maybe.
It's the Kings and the Canucks.
Kings and Canucks, sorry. Heading over to going over to, I don't even know what I'm saying. Going over to China to play preseason games. So I think that there's a lot of money to be made at the China Olympics, as there was in the previous China Olympics. I can't see if the IIHF can put the best players they can on the ice. I don't see them just saying no. I think the NHL holds the power here. The NHL doesn't really take a hit from this. Yeah, people get upset. Yeah, maybe Ovechkin goes over, and that hurts the Canucks for the Capitals for a couple of weeks. They wish, yes.
It hurts the Canucks because they'll have a team below them in the standings.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe that hurts the Capitals for a couple of weeks as they don't have Ovechkin. But I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus of players that go. To be completely honest, I think that's a lot of hot air, and I think this threat of not being able to go to China in 2020 is also just the same thing. It's hot air.
So here's my question for the table.
Okay.
So, the NHL has said, our players can't go. You're not going. Now, what is, like you said, Alex Ovechkin, what is stopping him from going? Will he get fined? Will there be a suspension? We saw, I think it was a couple years ago, granted, it's kind of a different thing, but we saw, Ovechkin pull out of the All-Star game, and the NHL said, oh, that's going to be a 1-game suspension. And he was like, yeah, I don't really give a crap. I don't want to play. So, I haven't seen the NHL present anything in terms of punishment. So I'm curious as to what's actually stopping these players from going.
I'm sure there'll be they'll probably, I'm assuming that the NHL will hit them in the pocketbook. I think this will be a situation where under the CBA, now that this is me just thinking out loud and speculating, but there's basically a provision in the CBA that says Gary Bettman can drop a fine on you or drop punishment on you for whatever the hell he wants, basically. So I think they'll be, suspended without pay for the time they go. And I think they're going to take a heavy, heavy hit in the pocketbook for doing it.
I think if the NHL wants to be serious about it, they need to suspend the players without pay for the remainder of the season and playoffs. If the Capitals are a cup contender this year and Ovechkin goes to the Olympics and is suspended the rest of the time, how good are the Capitals really?
Well, and that's the other thing too, is because a guy like Ted Leonsis would let Ovechkin go, I think. Like, I think he would, he's not, some of these guys won't face punishment from their teams. And I think the NHL, as the NHL itself, needs to be the bad guy here. I don't think that the individual owners are obviously going to want to, we've seen what happens like over Olympics, man. Like we saw Martin St. Louis get, traded out of Tampa Bay over bad feelings over the Olympics. I can't imagine the scale that would be if Ted Leonsis himself had to come down on Ovechkin. I don't want to even guesstimate how bad that could be for the owner-player relationship, especially for superstars. Like we know that it's a two-tier punishment league for these stars.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the NHL has to be the bad guy. How excited are you for this Olympic tournament, knowing what we know?
Well, it's hockey, so I'll watch it. And I mean, obviously, I'm going to root for the United States because I'm American. But it's not, I don't know, for me, even when, Team Canada was going on their amazing run the last 3 Olympics, there was never a time where I was like, oh, wow, I get to see all these players on this international stage. And, it's like, for me, it's just hockey. It's just extra hockey to watch. Like, it's not really anything for me beyond that.
For me, I love the Olympics, and I've said this before. I love Olympic hockey. I think it's the best hockey there is. I don't know if it'll now be the best hockey there is, but I do really look forward to the tournament because it's an opportunity to see players that I've never seen before. And it is an opportunity. I mean, look at like when a league goes on strike. Mm-hmm. Most of it, not that good, but there's always a few guys who impress so much as the what do they call them, the scrubs or whatever they call them, scabs, that they end up becoming decent players in those leagues. So I do think it's an opportunity to see some talent we haven't seen before, and maybe they find themselves in North America in the NHL or AHL the following year.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like I think for like Team USA, I'm excited because it looks like Team USA is really going to reach into like their college ranks to fill their team, and I'm actually excited to see that. I think Team USA now will that college gaggle of players be able to compete with the Russians or the Swedes or the Finns? I don't know. Because there's going to be obviously like the players that they're going to ice are going to be significantly better than anything that the North American teams ice, much like it was before the Olympics, turned over to the NHL in 98, I think it was 96, 98. So I'm excited to see what Team USA puts out. I'm not super stoked about Team Canada, which seems like they're just going to grab a bunch of European playing cast-offs. I would like to see them do something similar to the Americans and just raid the CHL for 2 weeks.
Well, and so actually, Kevin and you both bring up a really good point, because how long has it been, where Canada, the United States, and like Sweden, their roster is 97% NHL players, and then you have teams like the Czech Republic or like Latvia, who made it in 2014, or Germany, who made it in 2010, who in that scope in Germany or Czech Republic or Latvia, those are their best players, but then they go up against players from the NHL and they can't even hold a candle to what the players on Team Canada or the US can do. So I think for me, I'm going to change my stance here a little bit. I think it will be interesting to see what the best players from non-North American countries can do against, like you said, Canadian cast-offs in Europe and American college players. I want to see what they can do against those guys.
Come on, Switzerland.
But Russia's going to be
finally your time. Come on.
Like that's the thing I think that annoys me the most, is that Russia's going to be just stupidly stacked, especially if, you have players jettison over there, because yes, the KHL is not on the same level as the NHL. I think we all agree on this at this point. I don't think it's a debate anymore, but there's still some damn good players over there.
Well, and you have to think too, if Russia can finally pull it out and win the gold medal this year, everybody's paper bags are going to be nice and extra full this coming season.
They should be, and their families will hopefully be released after the tournament's over.
Okay, I've remembered my question.
Okay, go ahead.
So, obviously, AHL, as long as you're NHL contracted, you cannot play in the Olympics. But does that extend to players who are just NHL owned? Say, guys who were drafted in the past draft, they're NHL owned, they can't.
They're not under active contract.
So they can play.
Yeah, my understanding is they can play because...
That'd be cool.
A guy that's like, if they wanted to take a guy like, I don't even know who's still going to be in the NHL or the CHL this year with everyone being drafted. But let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say a guy like Dylan Strome, he would be fine to go because he was, if last year was this year and blah, 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 blah. Dylan Strome, for example, would be a player that would be able to play because he is not currently burning up a year of his
I thought he was under ELC though.
He is, but he only played 7 games, so he didn't start his entry level contract yet. He didn't actually burn a year, so my understanding is he'd be fine to go.
Interesting.
Or if you want to make it even simpler, if we're having this conversation 3 or 4 weeks ago, a guy like Balkers would be able to go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because as long as you're not actually collecting money, which if you're not playing in the AHL or NHL, you're not collecting money on your contract. So other than signing bonus, I don't think so. You're good to go.
Oh! In the chat, Kuda Phil says Sean Doogie for Team USA in 2018.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting tournament. I'm not super excited to answer my own question. I'm not super jacked. The time zone difference doesn't help. So I'm, obviously gonna be catching the games on replay, NHL games going on, AHL games going on. You know what? If it's convenient to catch a game, I probably will, but, it wouldn't be the, sit down and make the kids sleep and, experience that it would have been if the NHLers were there.
Yeah.
Vince G, fantastic. Vince G, earlier, I wanted to go back to this. Vince G said punishment is taking a Shea Weber clapper with no pads.
Oh,
ouch!
I don't want to take a slap shot of his with pads on.
Oh, exactly. That's my point. Moving on, I guess we should probably hit some other colossal Sharks news.
Danny Heatley. Oh no.
Danny Heatley gets Sousa's old agent gets $6.5 million.
Nice. Good for him.
Good for him. I understand that he doesn't have to pay any escrow on that, which is good for him. No, moving on. Goodrow gets a new contract.
He's used to collecting money without having to do a whole lot. So
oh no.
Oh, that's fantastic. Barclay Goodrow gets a new 2-year deal with San Jose. Understanding is it's a 2-way deal, but we don't know what the AHL numbers are for him yet. This signing's kind of curious to me because, and I wrote about this today on tealtintedglasses.com for those who don't know. I don't know what the plan here is, because it seems like since Peter DeBoer's come, like under Todd McClellan, he was getting, he played 70 something games, right? And then under Peter DeBoer, he's just lived in the AHL and can't seem to break back into the main roster. I don't know. Like, I understand he had a decent season in the AHL, but I don't understand what the plan is for him at this point.
Yeah, that's actually why all year I was saying I can't see him being qualified as an RFA. He did have a good year in the AHL, especially in the second half when he kind of started to put some effort behind his game. But still, where's the room for him? I think a guy like Goodrow would want to find a spot where he can move up. Look at what Buddy Robinson did. Robinson, awesome player for the Barracuda. Don't know if he still had a role on the Sharks, so he moved to Winnipeg, who has some holes on right wing. Mm-hmm. And Goodrow, especially for 2 years, surprising that he was willing to accept that, knowing he's probably going to be in the AHL.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's potentially room with him for him to get into the lineup, depending on, which spots are actually open and who does what in training camp. But based on the history under Peter, like, it seems like since Peter DeBoer's come to town, like, there's just been no room for him at the inn. Jerk, what's your thoughts on the Barclay Goodrow signing?
You brought up a really good point, and if Barclay Goodrow had been an unrestricted free agent, I would have had him leaving, kind of like how we had, Troy Grosnick and Ryan Carpenter leaving, who
look how that turned out.
Both yeah, right. But I don't know, because I feel like, granted, Barclay Goodrow in the 2 seasons he spent in the AHL, he's put up like a combined, I don't know, like 80 points just about, which is really good for the AHL. And I don't know. I feel like it. Yeah, he was an all-star. I just feel like if he was gonna be in the NHL with the Sharks by now, I think he would be. And we kind of saw that when guys like LeBanc and Timo Meier and Marcus Sorensen and even O'Regan were called up before Barclay Goodrow. Which, I mean, O'Regan is kind of it's a situation where it's like, okay, he's a center, you need a center, but Barclay Goodrow is a known quantity, especially Peter DeBoer. Peter DeBoer knows Barclay Goodrow. He wasn't very familiar with Kevin LeBlanc or Timo Meier, but they, were up in the regular season for a good chunk of time, and Timo Meier got to play in the playoffs. So
now, in Goodrow's defense, he did get to play before Goldobin.
This is very true. Goodrow did get home. He did. Those warm-up skates to inevitably be in the press box were just majorly important for his development. But and here's the thing is, in all the mock lineups that I've seen, and even the mock lineups that I've done, I have the Sharks, having LeBanc, Timo, and Sorensen all up. And even with that, there's no room for Goodrow. And I don't know. It's either, I'm wondering if Goodrow either thinks he still has a chance to make the NHL, or maybe he's just content on being, one of the Barracuda's like leaders, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, getting paid to play hockey is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah. I do have a question for both of you guys. I have a slantways question. I'll get it back to Goodrow. Where do you think does Carpenter start on the Sharks, or does he start with the Barracuda?
No, to me, I feel like there's 2 locks to start the season, in my opinion. Timo Meier and Marcus Sorensen, I think, are the 2 locks to make the team. Everyone else, jump ball.
Okay. The reason I brought it up is because if Carpenter is, I mean, the Barracuda right now have a black hole at right wing.
Yep.
Total black hole. If Carpenter is on the Sharks, it's even worse. Goodrow, who I feel is a stronger right wing than left wing anyway, is easily the top line right wing on this team next year. So from a Sharks standpoint, it's huge re-signing Goodrow.
Yeah.
Because even with Carpenter there, Goodrow is second right wing by a mile.
And, and the other thing I wonder too, right? Because Goodrow does have a little sandpaper to his game. Could he be like Diet Michael Haley?
It's very possible. But I just,
because the Sharks don't have that guy for the lineup yet. Like I refuse to. No, don't even. Don't say Brandon Bollig. We'll fight.
No, not Brandon Bollig. I was gonna say they have Timo Meier.
Oh yes, okay, fair. Yeah, but he's Diet Lucic. He's not Diet Haley.
That's okay. That's fair. But
that's a good point. I like that, Ian. That's a good point. He could be, because with Tom McClellan as coach, Goodrow, his 1 year of real NHL service, he kind of was in that role. Kind of. Like, I know he has, and he did have a little oomph in his game in junior too. Like, he wasn't afraid to throw down in junior. Yeah.
Right.
So I wonder if if he might embrace that role. Like, 'cause I don't think, like, I think Bollig shouldn't be on the Sharks, and I'm gonna give Peter DeBoer the benefit of the doubt that Bollig is just an AHL signing, and Doug Wilson for that matter, that is an AHL signing, and we will not see
Was
Brendan
Bollig
Bollig.
really that bad for the Blackhawks? I think he won 2 Stanley Cups with them.
So did Antti Niemi.
Yeah, and Adam Burish.
And Adam Burish.
Okay. All right. But no, I think it's an excellent point, though, about Goodrow possibly being the sandpaper guy on the Sharks. Maybe that was the selling point to get Goodrow to resign.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where, I think that's the one opportunity I see for him to have a path to the NHL with the Sharks, is if he's going to try and fill that, Michael Haley-ish, middleweight. Yeah, I can fight if I need to, but, be a little bit better than Michael Haley as far as like hockey player. And I don't hate that idea. I mean, yeah, would he be is there a better player that could probably take that spot? Yes. Would I hate Barclay Goodrow there? No, not particularly. I think it's, again, it's not your optimal lineup, but that's that.
Well, and I don't know, at least from my perspective, something that kind of makes the whole lineup situation a little interesting is, Joel Ward being under contract, and now he kind of had a step back this past year, and you have to wonder if this coming year, what Joel Ward are we going to see? Are we going to see the one from his first year where he was a 20 goal scorer, or are we going to see the one who at times looked like he was lost out there? And like I said earlier, based on lineups I've seen and lineups I've done myself, a lot of the time he's either on the fourth line or he's the extra forward. And that's a lot of money to be paying a guy who's not really in your lineup a whole lot, or when he is in the lineup, he's not really contributing. So, I mean, I agree with you. I think Sorensen and Timo are locks. But, if we see Carpenter or a LeBanc or even Barclay Goodrow, like, I'm curious as to what that holds for Joel Ward, or even like a Yannick Hansen or a Bodker. Like,
well, I think Joel Ward, like, if you look at like, and without getting too far into, like trying to figure out what the Sharks are going to be this season, because we have plenty of time for that, and it's August 9th. We can't blow this. We can't use this right now, guys. Like, we have to have reasons for people to come back and watch this show going forward. But I'll say that it's going to be an interesting season, because like if things don't go well, though, I mean, Joel Ward's on the last year of his contract. He could easily be jettisoned on the trade deadline if things don't go good for the Sharks this season.
Mm-hmm. Same without with Yannick Hansen.
Getting into it. Same with Yannick Hansen. So I think there's definitely, if things go wrong, and I'm not saying they will, they potentially could, then, those are a couple of guys that could easily be jettisoned at the trade deadline for assets.
So my question for you guys then is, do you think that Joel Ward this year becomes last year's Tommy Wingles?
No, I think too many people respect Joel Ward too much for that.
Yeah.
I think he will get played. I think a lot of people are projecting him to not play, but he will get played. That's my opinion. So I don't know. Just a couple of other quick notes around the leagues, though. Nate Schmidt gets the first salary arbitration award in 2 years. Everything for the last 2 years has been basically settled. He gets $4.45 million total, 2.25 AAV. I think it's a huge win for both them and Vegas, which I've wrote repeededly. It seems like. Kevin, what do you think about the deal? Sorry,
yeah, I'm a big fan of Nate Schmidt. Big fan. And besides the fact that he's one of those guys whose NHL headshots has a black eye. So gamer. No. But Nate Schmidt is a great player, and to me, top pair defenseman of the Golden Knights with Shea Theodore. And the biggest thing that I took from it was, wow, someone actually went to arbitration, because last year I believe every player settled without even going to arbitration.
2015 was the last time an arbitration award.
Yeah, this one not only went to arbitration, but actually went all the way through. I think it's a very affordable contract for the Golden Knights. And there was always this worry, still don't know why, but this worry about, can the Golden Knights meet the floor? This contract is not too much that they need to be worrying about their salary cap. So Great player, nice cost. 2 years. So he has 2 years to prove himself to get a big contract. So
and for Vegas to prove to them that they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Jerk, what do you think?
Yeah, I really like the signing. He had a really good year with the Capitals this year, despite coming in and being a young guy, obviously. And then, he goes to Vegas, and I mean, you just look at the Capitals lineup. Nate Schmidt could have, he could have done a magic trick before every game, and there's no way he's playing on the top pair. They just have so many good defensemen in Washington. So to see him come to Vegas and, like Kevin said, play on that top pair with Shea Theodore, it's going to be, a very young pair, very good pair. And I think the contract is perfect. It's nice and low to where you're not, strapping yourself financially, but it's also a nice little amount to give to Schmidt just to say like, hey, you played really well, keep it up and we'll give you more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win for both sides because Vegas wanted the term and Schmidt wanted the money, and they kind of both got what they wanted. I thought obviously you're going to lowball a player going into arbitration. I thought that the Vegas asks were ridiculous. I think it was like 9,500,000 or 950,000, and then like $1 million they offered him, which was just silliness for 2 years. And then he obviously gets the 2.25, which was under the 2.75 that he asked for. I think it's a great deal though. And I think that he's going to get a lot of opportunity in Vegas to really go forward. And I feel like he's going to, and Vegas gets the time to really, show, hey, look at, you're going to want to stick around here because we're going to do big things. And they have 2 years to do that, which I think, after this year, I think it's going to be a rough year for Vegas. But I feel like, they could start to turn that around by next year. So having just, not having him for longer than that, just that initial season, I think that's a great win for the Golden Knights.
And a huge loss for the Capitals.
Huge loss for the Capitals.
They lose Olser and Schmidt off their blue line.
Yeah, Washington's going to have a rough year too. Speaking of teams going to have a rough year.
Watch this.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, watch this be the year where everybody sells the Capitals, short. They're like,
they're losing Ovechkin to the Olympics.
Trash, not going to do anything. And then they finally make it to the third round in the Ovechkin era.
Oh, they're going to win the cup just in spite of all of us.
I would love to see that if it wasn't the Sharks.
Yeah, I don't care. I'd be fine with it. Jacob Trickern out indefinitely with knee surgery. That's a tough break for the Coyotes, who, like everything this summer, has been just exciting for the Coyotes, I think. There's been like everything I've loved, everything the Coyotes do, and then it's like this dark cloud comes over, and Jacob Trickern's out for out indefinitely, and that's crummy.
Yeah, especially when I still think he should have gone in the top 10 when he was drafted. Like the fact that he fell to the Coyotes was just criminal, if you ask me. And he even had
forgot how to draft, but
yes, of course. Well, they had to clear that cap space for Stamkos, right? But he even as a rookie, he looked really, really good in the desert. And I mean, I'm hoping that he can be ready to go as close to the beginning of the season as possible. But it's, I don't know, especially with a knee issue and they're just calling him out indefinitely. Doesn't sound,
that's not good.
Yeah,
no,
it sucks because I loved, like I said, I've loved everything the Coyotes did. They turned a first in Anthony D'Angelo into Derek Stepan and Antti Raanta.
Right.
They go out and they get Nicholas Hjalmarsson. Just I can't even believe Chicago. I still can't believe Chicago let Hjalmarsson go. Like everything, they've done so many good things this summer that look like not only, if everything kind of, if everything falls into piece bit, and we'll definitely go more in depth on the Coyotes in a future show, but this is a team that just, there's so much exciting about them. If everything goes right, like this is going to be a really, really fun team to watch, and to have that happen, it's such a wet blanket. Any thoughts, Kevin?
No. I still think that the Coyotes have too many holes on defense as it is. We'll get to it, we will
definitely hit it up on it.
I mean, it does suck for Chychrun's development. I feel bad for him. I don't think the Coyotes have enough yet for it to really matter if he's out for a few months. Now, if he's out for the full year, that's a concern, because I mean, we've seen it with Tomas Hertl. what, and Milan Mahalik even before that, where 1 year out, and that's a long way to recover.
Knees are scary.
Hopefully Chikrin's back soon.
Hurricanes extended their defenseman Brett Pesce, who the Hurricanes, like, for me, like, this is a team that, you know, Drew Weber's not on anymore, so we don't talk about them nearly as much as maybe we should. But this is quietly, like, I looked at that decor the other day, and because I had to write an article about it, and that is actually quite the scary little decor that they've got developing over there. Like, this team, like, there's guys over there, like, obviously everyone talks about Noah Hannafin, obviously because of draft pedigree, whatnot, but like Jacob Slavin and Brett Pesce are insanely good and just completely under the radar, and it's
especially
sad.
Pesce.
And don't forget, and all three of those guys young and are great, and it's good for them. And don't forget about Justin Falk either.
That's right. No, that's what I mean. I mean that team, like, I it sucks that they're in the Metro, because I think that being in the Metro really hurts them, because it's going to be such a cutthroat division again this year, I think. And to move up in that division, that's a tough task. If the Hurricanes were in the Atlantic, they'd be a playoff team.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
especially with Justin Williams back in the fold.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Game 7. I mean, what can you do?
My only concern about the Pesce deal, he's young enough where this shouldn't matter, but yet it's a 7-year deal?
It is a 7-year deal.
Man, everybody's getting signed to 6, 7, 8-year deals, and then I don't know. I just think lockout. Pesce is only 22 years old, and the salary isn't really that bad for the player that we think, I guarantee Carolina thinks, is going to be a very solid defenseman for a long time. But still, man, you're at 22, you're already guaranteeing this money for so long.
But I feel, though, like, if you look at Vlasic's last deal, I think that is what you can compare the Slavin and Pesce deals to.
I agree. I do agree there.
Like, these are going to be just absolute silly steal of a deals when they're done. You're going to be like, how did they ever get away with paying Slavin and Pesce this little money? Just like we said for Vlasic until he obviously hit the huge payday this summer. Anything final on that? All right. Nope. Wrapping up our around the league news. Mike Fisher retires. So long, Mike Fisher, Mr. Carrie Underwood. It's been real.
I love Mike Fisher.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they got. Obviously, I think with them obviously getting Rijo back under contract, I think Nashville's going to be fine. I think Mike Fisher, heck of a career. Too bad that he wasn't able to capture the cup there in that last run, but heck of a career anyway.
Oh, definitely. And a guy who really, I feel like, didn't get the respect that he deserved during his career. Even back to when he was in Ottawa. I mean, time and time again, when the Senators were in the playoffs, Mike Fisher stepped his game up. And it's been so long, I don't remember who was ahead of him on the depth chart back in Ottawa. But I remember some major center for them got hurt in the playoffs. And Mike Fisher stepped up to the plate and really made a name for himself. But because he's, I guess, considered a guy who overachieved in his career based on, where he was selected and whatnot and developed, he should have gotten way more recognition than he did, other than being Carrie Underwood's husband. But and then the other thing is that, I mean, these rumors about his retirement have been going on for at least 3 years. So nice of her to loan him to the NHL and to the league's fans for an extra few years.
Absolutely.
Dirk, any final thoughts on Mike Fisher?
Well, and Kevin brings up a really good point too, because the not this year, the year the Sharks went to the Stanley Cup. You look at Mike Fisher in the regular season, and he underwhelmed. Just to be frank about it, he underwhelmed. And then I remember that series against Nashville. I think it was a 7-game series, and I'm pretty sure Fisher had a goal in the first 4 or 5 games of that series. So like you talk about, stepping up to the plate and coming alive. Yeah. He was known for doing that, especially.
He had that triple OT goal.
Yeah.
Mike Fisher.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So by request, because I threw out last time we were on air, I said, let me know what you want to do. And we did get a few people that did mention to me that they did enjoy our division previews last year. And it's a nice way to kind of, kill time to get to the season, because right now there's, we're getting to the point now where arbitration's done. Pretty much nothing's going to happen from here on in until obviously training camps start and whatnot. So this is it. I mean, there's a couple of guys waiting for contracts, but it's nothing that we can talk for 30. Well, who am I kidding? We can talk for 30 minutes about anything.
We'll have plenty of time for holdouts.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time for holdouts, and we'll have plenty of time to get to all the college free agents that sign new deals.
Oh, yeah, that's next week.
That's next week.
Oh.
Will Butcher, where's he going? We'll have that for you. Oh, man, I feel so sad for us.
Butcher Watch 2017.
All right. Okay, so this year, instead of going in alphabetical order, I decided to go in order of standings. So obviously what I'm going to do is we'll do the Sharks last, like we always do. And in the Sharks place, when we are supposed to do the Sharks according to the standings, we will do the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh, okay.
That is how this will go. So we are going to start with the Vancouver Canucks. I'll just give you a quick rundown of what's up, and then we'll talk about them, and then you can decide.
Last year we had to wait till the very end of the summer to talk about the Canucks, and
right. I want to get.
So that's why you're putting them up now.
Absolutely. All right. So coming in, you have goalie Anders Nilsson, you have Alex Burmistrov, Sam Gagner, Michael Del Zotto, and new head coach Travis Green. Out is Ryan Miller, Jack Skilly, Philip Larson, and former head coach Willie Desjardins. Brandon Gauntz just re-signed today for a 2-year contract, which I believe is $750,000. So their only outstanding restricted free agent at this point is Bo Horvat, which obviously is a big name. Their current top prospects, you have Olli Juolevi, obviously, Thatcher Demko, Brock Bosser, who will be playing likely for the Canucks this year. You have Jake Virtanen, who obviously is a guy we'll have to talk about. Adam Gaudette, Cole Lind, Jonathan Dahlen, who is an absolute, just like for a GM who I've raked over the coals, this was an absolute steal for them in getting the Jonathan Dahlen for Alex Burrows. And first round pick this year, Alice Pettersson, who has been injured, I guess, this offseason.
Oh, really?
Yes. He aggravated an injury. I looked into it. I kind of been writing a lot of stuff, so I've been trying to memorize everything.
They also lost Nikita Triamkin back to the KHL.
That's true.
By the way.
They did lose Triamkin back to the KHL. That's a good point. I think where I think I'd like to start, though, is I think this is a storyline that, in my opinion, has kind of been underplayed so far. And this is a contract year. Like, this is a contract year for the Sedins. This is the last year of their current contract, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, you're right.
So I'm kind of surprised that's gotten as little talk as it has so far.
I think that's kind of in the same light as Shane Doan, where it's, well, we know they're going to resign. Well, we know they're going to resign. But now, look, Shane Doan has not resigned with Arizona. And the Sedins are getting up there in age, so
they are 36 this year.
I think it's the whole assumption they would stay in Vancouver, but that's not necessarily true. And the Sedins, with Vancouver's fall from grace from the Stanley Cup Finals 6 years ago, the Sedins have kind of fallen from stardom there too. So, I mean, you guys wouldn't consider them stars at this point? I think you'd consider them just very good players, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're gone are the days of consistently getting close to 100 points.
Yeah,
their supporting cast isn't exactly what it used to be either.
Yeah,
I still think the Sedins are stars. I think that, look, Vancouver, this is a team to me where it was in denial for so long, and now it's going to take them a real long time to dig out of it. I mean, they were in denial as late as last offseason when they signed Louis Eriksson to a ridiculous contract for ridiculous money and ridiculous term.
Stupid.
Stupid, exactly. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, when your defense gets as obliterated as the Canucks defense has gotten, I mean, they really don't have a great transition game at all. And that's obviously going to put super strain on, your forward's ability to score. And I think that, they're definitely not, cruising the 100-point seasons. I don't know if it's fair to expect that of them at this point with the supporting cast being what it is.
No. That team has way too many holes. And I mean, how many years have we heard who's going to play right wing with the Sedins? Like,
right.
Brock Besser, I guess, this year. I mean, I think Brock Besser is the Calder trophy winner this year.
I was going to say how in terms of finding a right wing for the Sedins, how is it not Brock Besser?
Yeah, but I think he's better left wing anyway. But I mean, it's unless Eriksson has a bounce back year. Yeah, you're right, Hockey Jerk.
Yeah, it's difficult. I like Brock Besser a lot. Is he the man? I don't. He could be. I
mean, they put him there at the end of this past season, and he, was probably one of their brightest spots on that team.
Yeah. There's a couple of names that I like for Calder next year. And I wouldn't rule out Clayton Keller either.
Okay. Yeah.
I think depending on what, again, going back to Arizona, depending on what they do, that team could be a firecracker to watch now that Tippett's gone and everything else. But back to Vancouver. Besser definitely could be a definite thing. And that's the thing I like about Vancouver this season is I feel like I like some of the acquisitions that they made to try and, kind of stabilize things. I think goaltending is going to be an absolute disaster for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know, I think Anders Nilsson was a nice insurance policy, but I don't have much faith in Anders Nilsson as a full-time starter, and I have no faith in Jacob Markstrom, period, at this point.
And Thatcher Demko has struggled last year in the AHL. So, I mean, if things had gone well in what's that? No, that's what I'm saying. If things had gone well in Utica, you could say Demko would be their number one, and it didn't. And I'm hoping, because I think the world of Demko, and I'm hoping that year last year didn't really, what do I want to say, stunt his growth.
It's hard though, because the Vancouver Canucks, like I said, they've been in denial for so long. Cupboard's empty.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at a lot of these prospects, they're recent draft picks.
Oh, I think, yeah, they had an excellent draft in my eyes this year.
Correct.
But that is their prospect pool, plus Jonathan Dahlin.
Yeah, and O'Leary.
And O'Leary, yeah.
Other than that, it's a barren wasteland. So I think, for me, I think that's the big concern for them, obviously, is that I think they're finally, now that they've accepted their lot in life, I feel like they're heading in the right direction. I feel like, the course I feel is turned. This year is really going to be the telltale year for me on what the Vancouver Canucks are and where they're headed. I think that on the surface, it looks like they've made the right moves to at least start righting the ship. And this righting of the ship, this isn't going to be a 1 or 2 season thing. This is going to be ugly.
No,
but I feel like at least for them, they're at least turning in the right direction. Now, again, the proof will be in, what happens this season, but I feel like at least they're on the right track. And I feel like, getting rid of Willie Desjardins was smart, because Willie Desjardins was a guy who, they made that trade for Goldobin and with their high hopes, and Desjardins wouldn't play him. And, and that's not the first, younger guy where, actually either Desjardins overplays them or, doesn't play them at all. And I don't know. I just feel like, Willie Desjardins' run there was an unmitigated disaster.
I have a question for you then. Do you think Willie Desjardins would have been better as an incoming coach this year? Because he has a track record of being very good with the kids. But last year, all he had was aging veterans. And do you think that just wasn't a good fit for him, or was it his style?
Well, I mean, I would be concerned when you look at where Jake Virtanen is the player right now. You look at what they did to Jared McCann.
Yeah,
that's tough. I mean, I know Desjardins' reputation for being good with young players, but these two players, and I'm not saying this is on Desjardins alone. I think Jim Benning has a whole lot of responsibility for what happened too. But those two players were clearly done. They got off to an okay start. And I think, Jared McCann got off to a really good start, but it got to the point where he had so clearly hit the wall and they just refused to send him back to juniors. And then they gave up on him and traded him. Like, it's brutal. And then Jake Virtanen, again, you want to talk about a putrid Utica team. Jake Virtanen didn't help that situation at all because he was awful down there. Like, for a guy who was drafted 6th overall, that's scary, scary, scary stuff.
Yeah, I forgot. They do, at least on their goaltending. Their D is all right, huh?
Yeah, the goaltending's bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I think outside of them adding Michael Del Zotto, it might be a little one-dimensional. But I mean, with Edler, Tanev, and Goodbranson there, all defensive defensemen. Hutton becoming a real nice, well-rounded defenseman there, and then Stetcher's the other offensive defenseman there. I think their D's okay now, which I could not say last year.
If anything, their defense is definitely pointed in the right direction, even with the loss of Nikita Tramkin.
Yeah, and look at going off your point there. Look at the turnaround from the St. Louis Blues those years they were missing the playoffs. All they did was develop defensemen. Look at Carolina the last few years. We've talked about them being poised to make a big step forward because their homegrown defensemen are right there. So,
like for Carolina, a fact that I found out when I was writing about it was that for a team that had everybody on the team was in the minus on the plus minus side. No, plus minus is a crappy stat, but I think in this context, it's kind of useful when you see like Slavin and Pesci, I think, were plus 25 on a team filled with minuses. Like, that's insanity.
It goes to show how important defensemen are,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like, I don't think this is an amazing defense score, but it's an NHL defense score at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is more than I could see for it last year.
Yeah. And I don't, the loss of Tramkin, I really don't think. I looked at him being a giant Alexei Semenov out there. Every time I saw him, he was awful. I don't know what Canucks fans are happy. Maybe Canucks fans were happy because he was a young guy on the team, but I thought Tramkin was garbage. So I think they'll be fine defensively without him.
Yeah. Vancouver's, it's, like you said, they're definitely on the road to some growing pains for sure. I mean, they're all of their legitimate prospects that they have are going to be in the NHL. Besser, Goldobin, Jonathan Dahlin are all going to be in the NHL. So it's a matter of, taking those players and, not forcing them to play more than they should, or, forcing them to play less than they should. It's the new head coach is going to have to come in and he's going to have to do a really good job at, managing his younger players and keeping them on the right path to development. Because we've seen so many times where a younger player is thrown into the deep end and they can't swim. And then their entire, career, at least in their 20s, is just totally tanked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause we've seen what happened. I mean, we watched Edmonton where they just, I think it's important what they've done. Like, having the Sedins there is still good. Having Louis Eriksson, even though that's a ridiculous contract and I'll never be able to justify that contract, it's still helpful in the sense that you still have these veteran players that, it's still, I don't think this is a complete changing of the guard this season. This is still the Sedins teams. And that's important because when you had like Edmonton going through their growing, that didn't happen. They just turned it over to the Nugent Hopkins and the Everlays and the, and the Taylor Halls. They never really had that buffer of veteran talent. I think that Vancouver has done that, really well. Having that still, bringing in guys like Sam Gagner, having those veteran guys that are still there that can insulate some of these younger players and not just completely just throw them to the wolves.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's
To that point, should Elias Pettersson, now you mentioned he gets injured, but I mean, if he's got a full training camp under him
Mhm.
and he impresses, should he be on the Canucks or should he be in Timrå?
I feel like if I'm the general manager, this team's gonna be in pain. I think like there's growing pains this season. I think you want to start breaking some guys in. I don't think you need to break all the guys in. I think another to liken to go kind of back to the Oilers again. I think this is a situation like with Leon Draisaitl where it was like, yeah, it's things are pointing in the right direction, but they're not quite there yet. And you got Leon Draisaitl the hell back to Kelowna.
Yeah.
To just because I think it's going to be a painful season for the Canucks, and I don't know how many guys you want to just kind of throw to the wolves. Like I think guys like Goldobin need to do something. Brock Boeser, he didn't leave college to not play in Vancouver. So if he's good enough to play in Vancouver, you play him in Vancouver. You don't send him to Utica. He didn't leave college to go to Utica.
Yeah.
So in situations like that, yeah, you play the guys. If you have an opportunity to put some guys in other places, you definitely do it this season. I don't think this is the season where you just turn the team completely over. You want to get these guys integrated in properly. You can't just give it all to the youth at one time. We've seen what happens when teams try that, and it's never been good.
Yeah, and you brought up Elias Pettersson, and I mean, I don't know. I could see him go back to Sweden just because it's familiar, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Elias Pettersson in Utica either. I mean, it allows him to develop and, take a big role on that team because, like you said, that Utica team was just crap. It
was awful.
It lets him take a bigger role, and let's say you have to call him up or you want to call him up. He's across the country. He's not on the other side of the world.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think Utica is a decent call, depending on who else is there. I think it's a decent call. I'll get to my next point in a moment. Ian, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, for me, it's always for me, it's very important to get your prospects in North America, getting used to the North American game, getting used to the North American ice. So I think if you can get him to come over and play in Utica, you definitely do. You have nothing to lose, everything to gain.
That's a good call because, I mean, look at Marcus Sorensen. Marcus Sorensen had some adjustment issues this year coming to North America, an older player coming to North America. And I think it's just easier to change your ways when you're young, like Elias Pettersson is.
And I don't know, take with this what you will, but according to Elite Prospects, he's actually committed to a team in the SHL already for this year.
So it's not Timrå then, huh?
No, it's I don't know how to say the first part, VAXJO, but
Vecwa.
The Lakers. Yeah, Vecwa, the Lakers.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's a good team. That's actually a good program to be in if he stays in the SHL.
Solid. Yep, solid.
I knew you would know the answer to that, Kevin.
So let's wrap up on this Vancouver Canucks. Bo Horvat, obviously unsigned. This needs to be the centerpiece of what they have going forward, I think. Like, Bo Horvat, obviously, this wasn't a pick I particularly liked, especially when they moved Corey Schneider for him.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm completely comfortable eating my words at this point.
Definitely.
He's done nothing but improve every season. And I think if I'm Bo Horvat, my dollar signs start with, a 5 and have 6 zeros after it. And I'm not even talking about anything under that at this point.
I was thinking 6 and yeah. He's been very good. And especially when you look at the defensemen, the young defensemen that have been signed this offseason, making 4 and up. Horvat and his point production in that lineup the last couple of years, I think he can make 6 and up.
Yeah, I think he could make 6 too. Like, I don't think he's up in the 7s and 8s, but
no,
5 to 6, I think that would be perfectly reasonable. And I think the Canucks need to get that done because not having Horvat come into camp would just be a colossal mistake for a team that finally seems to have figured out their lot in life. Jerk, any thoughts on Horvat?
You both brought up really good points. He has been their best young player the last 2 years. And like you said, he's gotten better every year. I think absolutely the lowest you can get away with paying him is $5 million a season. And even then, the trajectory that he's been on and the type of, offensive abilities that he brings, as well as being defensively smart, you can't afford to screw around with a guy like Horvat, especially when he's supposed to be, in your long-term plans with a guy like Besser and Goldobin and Dahl. And the position the Canucks are in, they're finally starting to accept the fact that they suck. And
Yes.
they're starting to, put pieces in the right places in order to be a true rebuilding team. And, when you're in that position and you have a good young player like him, you can't afford to screw around with it.
All right, so we got about 10, 15 minutes left. I want to hit the mailbag quick. Actually, first, before we hit the mailbag, Vancouver Canucks, where do they finish in the Pacific? I'm going to say, I still think they finish last. I still think Vegas, as not great as I think they'll be, I still think they finish ahead of the Canucks.
Snowman, I got him 8th. That feels weird. 8th in the Pacific. I got to get used to that.
Yeah, that's weird.
But I do agree. Last place. I think Vegas will be just a little ahead of them.
No, we've just ruined the Vegas show. Good job, guys. Go ahead, Jerk.
We're gonna go for the hat trick here. I'm gonna say they're gonna be in last.
All right. So I want to get to the mailbag plus some questions that I've perused in the chat here. First question we have is who are your top 3 favorite Sharks players of all time and why? Who wants to go first?
Oh, I gotta think about this.
Jerk, can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, of course. Okay,
Go.
so 3 favorite players of all time. I'm gonna go in order of current to when I was younger. Okay, so right now my favorite player is Joe Pavelski, and I hate to be that guy who's like, oh, I knew him win, blah blah blah, but I've been a Joe Pavelski fan. The thing that did it for me with Pavelski.
Are you a Joe Pavelski hipster? Is this what you're trying to tell me?
I am a Joe Pavelski hipster. He became my favorite player that playoff series against Dallas in 2008 when he got that OT goal. That's when I knew. I was like, all right, that's my guy right there, Joe Pavelski. Before that, it was Patrick Marleau, obviously. But my original favorite player, believe it or not, Brad Stewart. I had a very interesting infatuation with Brad Stewart. When he first joined the Sharks, I was a younger person, child. And we had I remember this in my classroom, we had like an assignment, draw your perfect, I don't know, it was some weird assignment, but the moral of this is in this imaginary, like, hangout or whatever you want to call it, I had a Brad Stewart poster. Like, I was weirdly into Brad Stewart as a kid. So yeah, those are my 3.
Kevin, are you good or do you want me to go?
I have a little tough time with number 3 because I can
go and give you more time.
Loving certain guys in like at times. Like,
sure,
there was a time when Scott Hannon was one of my favorite defensemen.
Oh Jesus!
I don't think he's that bad. I absolutely love Marc-Edouard Vlasic, but I don't know if I can say he's number 3. Definitely Tim Kennedy is my number 3. Oh, sorry, no. So I'm going to go with Patrick Marleau because St. Patty's Yo Daddy. And freaking Patrick Marleau. What else can you say? I mean, the guy... Sorry, Sharks, Marleau haters. Marleau's a playoff performer. He's not a consistent playoff performer, but he's a playoff performer. The guy, he may have 1 goal one series and then he'll have 9 the next series, but he can perform. And how many times did Marleau score clutch goals against the Detroit Red Wings year after year after year? So he's my number 3. Number 2, Joe Pavelski. My only regret about Joe Pavelski was that when I was trying to get a new Sharks jersey, when they switched to Reebok, I was like, Pavelski, Mahalik, Pavelski, Mahalik. Well, I like Pavelski more, but the Sharks are probably going to trade him. So Milan Mahalik.
Oh, no.
Sad.
Joe Pavelski. I mean, that's sad. Yeah. Joe Pavelski's awesome. Captain America. I mean, I've loved this guy ever since they drafted him. Even in the 7th round, I was like, that's a steal. This guy could be a steal. And there it is.
So we've got 2 Pavelski hipsters on the show.
Number 1. I would like to say it as Joe Ike, the former Sharks public address announcer, would say. Number 11, Owen Nolan. Owen Nolan, Buster, power forward, could change the tempo of a game, and not just that Blues game against Roman Turek. I mean, so many times I saw Owen Nolan, when the Sharks were down and out, carry the team on his back. And they'd end up winning games. And total leader. He scored 44 goals one year. Absurd. Because at that time, that was a long-standing Sharks record. I just love Owen Nolan's energy, his leadership, how he played, the fact that he could score at any time, and he could score a freaking slap shot. Nobody ever scores as a forward on a slap shot anymore. So I love Owen Nolan.
Not to steal your thunder, but Owen Nolan was my 4th.
There you go. So I don't really have an order here, and it's hard because I've watched this team since day one. So there's definitely probably gonna be some recency bias here. So I'm gonna say, just going from kind of in chronological order, and this is really, really difficult for me. I'm gonna go with, to start, I'll go with Igor Larionov. Igor Larionov was my favorite player growing up. Just, loved him. And just the team was dreadful, and then the off line would come on, and they looked like, you had Makarov, and you had Garpenloff, and then Oslint on the point, and these guys could just move the puck. It was a completely different team when that line was on the ice.
Oh yeah.
In comparison to and then you threw out Whitney and Falloon. It was a completely different, completely different style with those guys on the ice, and it's just, they were so fun to watch. And I mean, they were. Obviously, they're a big part of the reason that I'm a Sharks fan today. Going back to those Detroit series where they, the Detroit series and then the Calgary series the next year. I mean, they stole those series. They had no business winning either of those series, and because of those guys, they did. So Larionov, definitely one of my favorite players,
and that's fair, Ian, because my friend Heather, her favorite player all time. No, her favorite player all time is Marcus Ragnarsson, but her second favorite player, Johan Garpenlov. So that line was, good call with Larionov. I like that.
So Larionov, and then I'm going to go a little more recent. Obviously, Joe Thornton is one of my favorite players always. Yes, Sleepy Larionov is Goldobin's agent. Joe Thornton. What can Joe Thornton turn this team from a scrappy, just happy to be their team, to a legit contender. And despite all the he doesn't shoot enough and blah blah blah, this team isn't such a world of pain if Joe Thornton can't skate this year or when he's officially gone. And then just since Joe Thornton was on the team first, my last, I will say Dan Boyle. Dan Boyle, nice. Love Dan Boyle, especially, when he was good before he, before that awful hit he took. And then kind of went to crap. But before that, man, Dan Boyle was just, he was the guy. He was, he said the things you wanted to hear. He had that fiery, sandpapery personality. And he, if the Sharks played bad, he'd be the first to come out and tell you very, very honestly how he felt about how the team played it sometimes. And I thought, with a team where you had guys like Marleau who didn't really talk, or Thornton where everything's A-okay all the time, it was a nice change of pace to get that kind of, that attitude from him. So Dan Boyle, honorable mention, Urbe, Nabokov,
and Alexei Semenov.
And Alexei Semenov, absolutely. So no, those would be my honorable mentions, would be Urbe especially, and Nabokov too. I was a big Nabokov guy, even though I think Sharks fans overrate his greatness.
That's fair to say.
I know. I
love Nabby.
I love Nabby too, but I feel like no. Look I love Nabby. I mean, he was our guy forever, but at the same time, I'm not going to pretend that he just would go from being this crazy elite looking goalie to allowing absolute beach balls in at the worst possible times.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. No one said Lank, or Pat Falloon.
Hey, you mentioned Pat Falloon. It just had nothing to do with
right. It wasn't exactly in a positive light. I'm trying to think of some of the other questions we got in here. Obviously,
breaking
in the chat,
news is that John Root just followed me on Strava while you were talking, Ian. So hey,
nice, congratulations. Does Matt Duchene escape Colorado? Yes or no?
I have it on. I've mentioned this off air. I'm gonna watch what I say, but I have it on good authority that Matt Duchene definitely wants out, and it's not just the rumors of they could trade him. I mean, he wants out.
Who would blame him at this point?
Who
would blame him at this point?
But for reasons that I can't discuss.
That's fair.
Yeah, Duchene. I hope he does. I hope to see him in Teal. There's your what the future at center behind Couture. Not that I don't know if he'd be behind Couture, but hey, why not? But it's not going to happen, folks. But yeah, Duchene needs to get out of Colorado. I don't think it happens till Christmas.
Yeah, I think if it is going to happen, it's going to be a super tough process. I think it's going to be a lot of it's going to be very similar to Rick Nash situation, I believe, where it's a big, long, dramatic thing, and then inevitably they, Colorado has to lower their asking price. But I would like him to be out of Colorado. I think Matt Duchene he's a super good player. He's very versatile. He can seamlessly go from right wing to center and not have any drop off, and he's been a super bright spot on Colorado when they've had some really dark years the last couple of years. And I hope he does. I hope he goes to another team and he, kind of gives the old middle finger to the Avalanche and is like, look what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think if it goes, I agree. I think it's a long run out thing. I don't think it gets done before the season starts. I think he starts the season in a Colorado sweater. I don't think the Colorado Avalanche are as bad as the record was last year. Everything that could possibly have gone wrong for Colorado went wrong last year. Varlamov getting shut down for the season and just other, just complete comedy of errors, for the team to sink that low. I don't know what's, and Sleep is asking, what does Sakic think he'll get? I don't know. But I don't think that I don't think that he's going to escape soon. If that's the case. Obviously, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, just in response to what does Sakic think he'll get? I don't know how realistic this is, obviously, but I was listening to, the Maple Leafs radio on TSN a few months ago, and their people were saying that allegedly Sakic, if they were going to trade Duchene to the Maple Leafs, it would have to be a William Nylander, a Jake Gardiner, and a first draft pick, and maybe that'll get it done. Which I don't agree with, but it's a very silly ask.
That's a silly ask. I think if I'm Joe Sakic, and I'm not.
Are you sure?
I'm not Joe Sakic. I can confirm TTG5. I am not Joe Sakic. You definitely need to get a defenseman though for Duchene. You have to get a defenseman. You need a defenseman that can move that puck because Colorado does not have that. So I think that, that's what they need. I think if you can get yourself a good, top flight defenseman for Duchene and a pick, you say, thank you, sir. And you run to the bank with it. Cause I think that would solidify their team quite well. I think, you look at this team, you look at the forward lines, this team should be better than it is. The defense is a tire fire for sure. But that with that forward core, they should at least be able to glass cannon it like Dallas.
Yeah, I think a lot of their guys seriously underwhelmed this year, and I think that has to. That has a lot
was
to
the
go
only guy
into
that scored 20 goals.
Oh Jesus! Yeah, well there you go.
okay.
Granted, I think they took the right step to get rid of Patrick Waugh.
Yes, absolutely. Rapid fire. Tavares to the Sharks. Is this ever going to be a thing? Like it keeps getting written about. I need to write about this because I am not cashing in on this, and I need to do that. Kevin.
No. Do you think it's more likely than Duchesne to the Sharks?
Yes.
I agree.
Hockey jerk.
But I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh man, I hate to do this, but maybe because like you talk about time past Joe Thornton. It's not a total crack dream where the Sharks have a totally studded roster like the year they went to the Stanley Cup, and then it's like, hey, let's pick up Steven Stamkos. Like, no, that's a crack dream. But the Sharks going after John Tavares is I don't know if it'll happen, but I think it's a very realistic possibility. And I think if anything, if Doug likes having a job, he will do his due diligence.
I think you can't do it unless you have an extension for him in hand. Because if you give up the assets it's going to take to get John Tavares and lose him to free agency, then Doug Wilson needs to pack up his office.
Agreed.
All right, so let's get some quick final thoughts here because we need to get out of here. Kevin, final thoughts. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify something I just said. Not saying Matt Duchesne definitely wants to be out of Colorado. What I meant to say was there are certain people in Colorado Matt Duchesne does not like. And those people are key figures, which is why I think he will be out of there. Other than that, Barclay Goodrow, thank you for re-signing with the Sharks, even though you might be on the Barracuda, just because if you're not there and Ryan Carpenter is not there, Alex Schoenborn is the #1 right wing on the team, followed by John Martin. So Barracuda need right wings. Thank you. I'm Kevin Lee, C22 on Twitter. Good night.
Mr. Hockey Jerk.
I'm really glad Barclay Goodrow re-signed because it extends the shelf life of my Peter DeBoer GIF tweets for at least 2 more years. You can follow me on Twitter at @hockey_jerk. Kind of old news by this point, but like 2 weeks ago, I did a spot on Trin Potratz's podcast. He's an Edmonton Oilers fan, and we talked about, the Sharks, the NHL, and all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't already, I'll tweet out the link one more time, and you can check it out. And you can make fun of me for forgetting names. Back to you, Ian.
All right. Just a couple of quick things from me. For those that don't know, I recently started writing for the website Puck Pros, which is on the Fansided Network. I'm writing about all kinds of NHL stuff there. I'm doing an X Factor series right now where I'm kind of going through all 31 teams. It's the most ambitious thing I think I've ever done. So please give it a look. You can generally find it in my Twitter stream. You can find all the links to the articles that I'm writing there, but definitely come and check it out. Also keep your eye on Teal Tinted Glasses because I am going to still be writing there as well. And obviously the podcast is going to be there, and we have a new writer. Aaron has joined us, Sharksaholic. So definitely, keep your eye there. And the last thing I want to talk about is we need to rename our Barracuda show, just not because we have to, but I feel like it's the right thing to do. I don't want to cause any confusion. So we need your ideas for a new name for Barracuda After Dark, or Bad, as we so eloquently called it. We're looking for a new name. So if you have an idea, send it to me. Just DM it to me on Twitter, and then we will make a poll or something, and then we will come up with we'll come up with a new name for the show, hopefully before the Barracuda season starts. So please help us out with that. That would be sorry, in the chat. I gotta get out of here though because we have limited space on our SoundCloud, and I want to try and keep as many episodes up as possible for the time being. Thank you all for watching in the middle of August, and we will be hopefully back next week. So cool. Bye. Love you all.